Secretary of State Antony Blinken is currently in Israel, where he has met with senior officials, including the president and prime minister. This is Antony Blinken's fourth visit to the region since the war broke out. Over the weekend, the top American diplomat also met with several Arab leaders. It is all part of U.S. efforts to keep the war from spilling over, while also underlining a support for a two-state solution. Blinken, as I mentioned, met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a short while ago. The two leaders discussed the ways ahead in Gaza, along with the humanitarian crisis at play. Prior to this, Blinken sat down with President Isaac Herzog. The two leaders discussed South Africa's case against Israel at The Hague. Herzog dismissed South Africa's genocide charges. Take a listen.
On Thursday, a proceeding will start in the International Court of Justice in The Hague, whereby South Africa has sued Israel for supposedly genocide. There's nothing more atrocious and preposterous than this claim.
The talks saw backlash from some Israeli citizens. Anti-war protests broke out outside the hotel where the meeting was taking place, calling on the U.S. to push for a ceasefire and bring the hostages back home safely. Blinken also met with Israeli Foreign Minister, his counterpart. These back-to-back meetings have been triggered by concerns that the war might escalate into a regional conflict. Antony Blinken's diplomatic shuttle to several Arab countries also focused on keeping the conflict from widening, amid fears that other countries might officially join the war. All right, for more on this, we are being joined by Mark Merowitz, professor at State University of New York Maritime College. He's joining us live from New York. Mark, great to see you. Well, yesterday, President Biden said that the White House is working with Israel to get them significantly out of Gaza soon after hecklers crashed his campaign event in South Carolina. Can we expect some kind of pullback soon?
Well, I mean, what you will see, I think, something different, which is what Israel is saying, is that they're going to change their focus in terms of withdrawing troops, more focused attacks. But what you allude to in terms of the president's talk at the church in South Carolina is very, very important, because Biden is running for re-election, and he's very worried about the support by Democrats and progressives of his policies in the Middle East. He's even confronted by hecklers in a church, which is, in my humble opinion, quite abominable, honestly, terrible. But the point is, he has to be listening to this and worrying about his standing with Democrats and in particular progressives, because those progressives are calling for a ceasefire. And Biden is saying he backs Israel and Israel's right to defend itself. That's a very tough position to be in.
Yeah, it really is. It really shows the divide in the Democratic Party regarding policies on Israel. Antony Blinken, in this visit, has reiterated U.S.'s unwavering support for Israel. This administration has done a good job so far in doing that. I'll give them that. But he's also highlighted that Washington continues to back a two-state solution. How do America's Arab allies view U.S. diplomatic efforts at this point?
I mean, you have to really layer this over to the Abraham Accords as well. I mean, look, the Arab states before October 7th, including possibly Saudi Arabia, were already warming their relations with Israel. That sort of came to a halt on October 7th. There's still a hope that the Middle East can actually become an area of stability and not war. I don't think that the Arab states are very enthusiastic about what's going on in Gaza, in terms of the fact that they don't want it to escalate either. And they're very worried about the power of Hamas and Hezbollah and other terrorists in the region. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, all of these states are in jeopardy from Iran and its proxies, just like Israel. Israel's fighting the war. So I think that before we figure out what's going to happen down the road, the first thing that has to happen is for the United States and its allies to confront Iran and to push it back and to contain Iran. And you know what Blinken is doing is very reminiscent, that you talked about shuttle diplomacy. It's sort of reminiscent of what Kissinger did way back in the connection with the 1973 October War in Israel. I mean, but the point is that this situation is different in the sense that it was provoked by a brutal atrocity on October 7th with rape and murder and beheading of children, which no one in any state can countenance. And it is sort of ridiculous that South Africa now brings this proceeding. I've looked at it. And if you want to understand why Israel is guilty of genocide, just look at the hundreds of footnotes that they put in, where they quote leaders from Iran, from the Palestinian Authority, accusing Israel of genocide. That, to me, is more a stunt, a publicity stunt, than a legitimate lawsuit being brought to help the people of the region. So I think that this really doesn't help the problem. It really makes it worse in terms of that proceeding. It doesn't help at all.
Yeah, Mark, it's always so great to talk to you. You draw these excellent historical parallels. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but it's clear that President Biden seems to always pick the weakest, less confrontational approach when it comes to foreign policy decisions like this. Mark Merowitz joining us from New York. Thank you so much.
Thank you.